Welcome to Living Vividly, the podcast where health, wellness, and curiosity collide. I'm Jackie, the founder of Vivid Health and Wellness, your guide on this journey to living your happiest and healthiest life.
My co-host Daphne, the unconventional dietitian, is always ready to shake things up and bring a fresh perspective to your wellness journey. And we can't forget Dustin, our producer, who keeps everything running smoothly behind the scenes. Together, we'll chat with health and wellness experts along with everyday people who have inspiring stories and practical insights to share. If you're ready to nourish your body, move better, and discover simple ways to thrive, you're in the right place. And hey, if you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to leave us a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Welcome back to another episode of Living Vividly. We're joined today by Melissa Bowen, owner of the Authenticity Center, licensed counselor, and awesome person. And full disclosure, this is our second time recording this episode.
Like, really, welcome back.
Welcome back again. We had a little bit of a technical audio issue. So in the spirit of being authentic, we're doing
full
it again.
disclosure, and we're just going to own it and
Do it again.
Let's talk about authenticity. What is being authentic?
Well, kind of like how we just owned our imperfections just a second ago, and that it's not always perfect. It's real. It's being real and honest. And I believe it's courageous action. Sometimes people think, when they think of other people, like, oh, they're so authentic, as if someone is or there isn't, like it's a quality. But it's not. I believe it's something we either practice or we don't. So it's just the courageous action of being honest about yourself, with yourself, true to who you actually are, authentic actions.
That resonates a lot with me because I consider myself a recovering perfectionist.
Yes.
And
I'm in the group.
Yeah. So there was a time whenever I would not let people see flaws at all.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I have plenty of flaws just as everyone else does. And so I don't know what switched the table, but all of a sudden at one point I was like, I'm human and humans are flawed people. And so being able to recognize that I am not perfect. I try to be the best version of myself.
Sure.
And so that's kind of more, rather than looking at perfection, just looking at how can I be the best version of myself.
It definitely changes.
It's a change in the perspective.
Yeah. And it might not be recognizable to other people, but you recognize the feeling where you're either coming from a place of wanting people to love you. I'm doing this because I want other people to love me. Or I'm doing it because I love myself. So then it becomes, instead of a hustle, it becomes thriving or striving for a thing. Yeah,
I also am
that.
a recovering perfectionist. I don't even think I'm recovering. I'm like,
I was going to say, I think you understand that there's a recovery
self-aware
process.
Self-aware perfectionist is definitely different than a recovering one.
But I am inching towards, like we were talking before we started recording, how I'm trying to, if I have to rush or if I have to cause myself stress and anxiety, I don't want to do it. And I feel like that is part of my recovery because I'll overload myself and I'll say yes to everything. And I'll make sure my house is immaculate before a friend comes over when they just want to hang out with me. They don't care if I've mopped my floors, you know? So
I think that's part of what started my process because we used to live in another house and we would have these like really big parties, a summer party and a winter party every year. And the first few years, it was like for the first couple of weeks before, I was breaking my neck trying to make everything perfect. And then finally I was like, we're not inviting people over that care if my house is perfect. If there's dust on the baseboards, literally no one cares. And if they do, then they probably shouldn't be here anyway. And that was like a big step in the beginning of my recovery process, I think.
It includes so many different facets. One of knowing you can't control what people think anyway, but we are trying really hard to.
Right.
I think we're all in recovery, people pleasing, recovering burnout, and recovering perfectionism, recovering imposter syndrome. I know, right?
Yeah.
And all of it is exactly opposite to just being real about ourselves because of the fear factor or the fear of loss or a bunch of emotions that we can get into. But your awareness of that is a step of helping to know who and what you are. So,
well, and I think we're drawn to people that we can see their authentic side. Like that, there's a connection with someone when someone allows their flaws to show and not cover them up.
It gives you permission to be real.
Yeah. And so we feel drawn to that person.
What exactly do you do again?
I am, by work and education, I'm a licensed professional counselor, so I do therapy. I'm also a certified Daring Way facilitator, which is I'm trained in the research of Brene Brown in shame, resilience, and then I do like coaching and speaking.
Okay. So we're talking about perfectionism right now. Are there different types? Like when I edit a video, I want to do everything I can to make it as perfect as possible to my standards. Not for anyone else, but because if it's out there, I want to be proud of what I did, whether or not people know that I made this edit or not. There's
a tricky line, and it's kind of what we were just talking about. You want to finish your question? I'm sorry.
No, it's kind of just that. Like, is there a bad?
How do you know that
perfectionism and a good one, or?
Well, I think what you're doing, it depends. I think when we're stuck in perfectionism, it feels disingenuous. It feels like we're hustling. We feel the stress as opposed to the striving for a good product.
Okay.
But again, only you would really know the difference. Somebody who's working extra hours, creating a podcast, creating a new life, you're in a new beginning here. It's hard to know the difference. Where am I stuck in a perfectionistic loop? I would say the constant awareness of, am I enjoying what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Am I okay if I take a break? I know I'm perfectionist. We're going to tweak everything always. Where's my criteria of good enough? Mm-hmm. And creatives especially have a problem with that, because it's never. It's really never. We're always going to tweak things. But so can you still sleep and enjoy your work and you still want to do it and relate to people? Or is it causing other issues I'm stressed, I'm not eating, my hair's falling out, I'm
just
yelling
overall
at
quality of life.
Yeah, quality of life and relationships.
Especially, and that kind of answered it of like, if you're enjoying that side of it, like, oh, no one's going to notice it, but you're enjoying it. Great.
And it's your creative.
But if it's stressing you out and no one notices it and there's no point to it and you're like,
And are you doing it so that they will be pleased with you? Because you won't be pleased with yourself if they're not. Can you put a product out or a part of yourself out that even if somebody else says that's not good enough, that I'm still okay with myself because I know I'm doing well? The losses we have when we are not allowing ourselves to be our authentic selves, whether it's our product or ourselves, the loss is so much greater. We lose ourselves when we're waiting for that approval, that external validation.
I think so. In my life, as I'm moving through adulthood, another thing that kind of started me on the process of recognizing that I was a perfectionist and tried to cut it off is that there was a person that I was never going to be good enough for. Like, there's nothing that I could do, nothing that I could say. It was always, well, why didn't you do it this way? Why didn't you do it that way? And I told that person, I've stopped trying to please you. Like, I'm no longer living my life to try and please you. And then that was just like such a weight lifted off of me. Like, okay, now I can please myself. I can make myself happy and do the things that are going to please me rather than worrying about that person's opinion all the time. Mm-hmm. That was freeing.
Yes.
Life-changing.
100%.
Huge movement or moment. I feel like my whole life has been that, up until very recently, just worrying about the validation of other people and how other people think about me. I didn't grow up with a lot. We were poor kids. I was a food stamp kid, trailer park, and I went to a good high school and I was around people with wealth and affluence. And I feel like I'd never felt bad about myself until that part of my life. And then I kind of always had this, not a chip on my shoulder, but just like an insecurity about, am I good enough to be friends with these people? Am I good enough to go to their parties? And it trickled into adulthood. That's been really hard to unlearn. Now I'm comfortable in life and I don't have to prove myself, but I still feel that sometimes. And that's hard.
But your awareness, Jackie, for real, your awareness of it is one of the biggest steps to recovery. Recovery. Seriously, because we talked about the ruler method of emotional intelligence. If we don't really know what's driving, then those shame messages are riding shotgun and they're telling us where to go all the time. And we don't even know it. So just that awareness of knowing what is driving my decisions.
So let's pull out the ruler method and let's talk about it, because I really do like and appreciate that I guess putting a name to it, because it's something that I've used sort of in my work when talking about people with emotions as it relates to food, but I didn't have it as well outlined. So tell us what the ruler method is, when it would be used, and like what it stands for. Give us the rundown.
Yes. So the ruler method is a method of emotional intelligence created by the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence and Mark Brackett in a book, Permission to Feel. It stands for recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate. And so it's just a process. And you say when to use it? Always. Can I get close to the mic? Always. Use it always. It's just a process to use anytime you feel activated by any emotion or you feel your energy shift in any direction. I'll say
so positive emotions or negative emotions.
So I'll be honest, we typically want to use it when it's a negative shift. Like if I'm embarrassed or angry, somebody cuts me off, I heard a snarky comment, what does this text mean? They're asking me to do stuff, all those. Yes. But even in the positive emotions, when you use that I'm recognizing it and I understand and I label it and I express it, now you're in gratitude. Now it shifts you physiologically, psychologically, emotionally in your awareness and presence in gratitude of your life. So 100%, it's beautiful that way too. In the negative aspect, so I recognize something in me has shifted. When, go to understand it, when did it shift? It could have been a couple days ago when I got a text, or it could have been just a few seconds ago. And then the language of it, to put a label to it, because we can all say, I'm happy, mad, sad, glad, scared. But there's a wealth of other more accurate.
I feel like those are just the big ones.
The big five, yeah. If you can find it really more accurately, because example, anxiety and excitement have similar energy. And if you label it all as anxiety, then you might be missing a really wonderful part of an experience because you're not labeling it appropriately. Tired and bored have similar energy. But if you would handle them very oppositely. Tired, you would go to rest. Bored, you would go to activity. So labeling appropriately helps shape your experience. Once you know what the it is that is happening with you, then you can go to express it. And expressing it can be a couple of different things, whether I express it for myself, prayer and meditation, journaling, or expressing it to a friend, like let me share with someone who can help me my burden, or confront, ask a question, or get instruction. So expressing can, again, just kind of completes a cycle so that you can be regulated. We talked about it a little bit as we started here. It doesn't change the situation we may find ourselves in. It changes you in it so that you're not ruled by the emotions, to use the word. You're not ruled by the emotions.
Pun intended.
Yeah. But you have more regulation and rule over your emotions. 100%.
Yeah. So I have a chart at home. I think I told y'all it's printed in color and laminated on my refrigerator that has primary emotions, secondary emotions, and the tertiary emotions that all kind of fall under the same category. And I love to pull out the chart and like, how are we feeling today? And my son loves it too.
Yes.
I'm sure your husband also loves it.
Yeah. He doesn't
about
participate
feelings.
as much, but yeah, I'll take it to my son. I'm like, how are we feeling today? And he's like, ugh. But I think understanding the emotion, I think for me, that's a big thing, is to understand exactly what it is that I'm feeling. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that is what I'm feeling. Okay. And then, deal with it.
And then you have more power to do whatever it is that you need, whatever it is.
I feel like that's such an important thing, especially with kids, to start giving ourselves language to identify our emotions and what we're feeling.
They're starting to get this program specifically in schools across the states, and it would be great. I know we're trying to get it into colleges too. And
that would be wonderful.
Yeah, right.
I think there was actually a program I used whenever my daughter was really young. I think it's called Conscious Kids. I might be butchering that, but it was like that. It was the 4 main, like happy, sad, mad, scared. And then it was all the little extra, and it was characters like a koala or a bear. And it was little faces and their expressions and helping these kids identify how they were feeling. It was pretty.
Yeah, if you look on like Pinterest or places, they got good charts with now the emojis. Yeah, that helps kids learn in their kind of way.
Yeah.
Or me
Yes.
I'm gonna have like my koala
Anyway.
grad. You have the adult handwritten. I have the koala faces.
And there's apps too that like I like the How We Feel app because you can scroll through all the words and it gives the actual definition of the appropriate words. And there's some apps that make them games. So where like you win credits to, when you brush your teeth or you made your bed or, you took a walk, and it kind of gamify mental health or emotional health. So I love all the resources that we got going on now.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about boundaries for a bit.
Let's talk about boundaries. This is my favorite topic.
Boundaries are so fun. So what is a boundary? How would you describe and we know what physical boundaries are, but like an emotional boundary, how would you describe that?
And y'all, please feel free to interrupt me because I know I can get on a soapbox about this and just kind of go, la, 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 la,
It's
la,
good.
la. Okay.
We don't want to interrupt you too much because whenever you're on a roll, that's when the gold is. And I'm going to need that for social media. So.
Okay. Let's just call it what it is. Okay.
Self-awareness is key.
Yes, we're doing so good, y'all.
We are.
We are. We're killing it, nailing it. So a boundary is a limit. And I think that our own personal limits, I think we kind of misuse the word boundaries right now because we say, I'm setting my boundaries or I've told someone my boundaries. I just think we kind of misuse the word, but it is a limit or something that is okay or not okay based on our experience. What is our responsibility? What is not? And I kind of use I use my hands when I describe it because I like to think of a fence line as a limit, like a property line. We don't typically go and cut our neighbor's yard over the property line, and we don't really allow our neighbors to throw garbage in our fence line. And so it's a delineation and a distinction of what's me and what is not me, what is okay and what's not okay. And so they're just the things that we have limits on: time, money, energy, desire, physical, who has access to my body or my mind. They're just the limits. And each individual has their authentic needs and desires about their boundaries and what we communicate.
I think I said this about the neighbors last time. You don't want their trash in your yard, and you don't go cut the grass unless you both want that.
Yes. We've made
That's
an
the
agreement.
yes.
Yes. Unless my husband has a riding lawnmower and he says, hey, you want me to cut your grass? And they say, yes, boundaries can be crossed. And some people have like non-existent boundaries. You trip over them and everybody's just kind of crossing paths. Or some make their boundaries really high, like a wall that you can't get in or out, or connectivity. So it's independent to the person and the situation. And that could be with like your parents, our close friends, our organizations who need time from us. It's in every relationship that we could possibly have.
Although I am a huge believer in boundaries, and I'm not saying anything negative about it, I feel like people misuse the word boundaries or the concept of them. Like, you can't do that because that's a boundary that I set.
Yes.
That's not a boundary.
Right. That is a request.
Ooh.
We use the word boundaries in that I have set my boundaries and I've told you, please stop emailing or calling me after 5 o'clock. I'm not doing work after 5. Or I don't want to work after 5 o'clock, but you keep calling me. And so we get mad at the other people for doing the things that we set our boundaries around.
Boundary.
Yes. You keep feeding my kid ice cream and I've asked you, I told you not to, or whatever. Those are my boundaries. What we've actually done is made requests. So a true boundary is, I am going to make this request because I know it's best for me in this relationship, my health and well-being. And if something continues to happen or when it happens, then this is going to be my behavior. So I've started to teach boundaries as my behaviors.
So like, because I requested this is going to be my behavior if it happens.
Yes.
Equals boundary.
Yes. If you continue to talk politics at the dinner table and right. Okay. And I've asked that Sunday dinners be no politic, no phone zone. And you keep bringing your phone or we keep bringing politics, then my behavior is going to be that I'll remove myself from the table. I'll change the topic. I can remove myself from the room. I will remove myself from the building. It's important to know that we don't set boundaries for punishment or control. That's another fallacy about boundaries, because we try to think that if I'm going to use them to control your behavior, what it actually is, it's protecting ours. Yes. Again, to use the politic things, I know that's such a hot topic, but it stresses me out, and I end up getting strained relationships with people if we talk about it. And I want to still kind of be in a relationship with some people. So I choose to not talk about those things. So my behavior is going to be, I will disengage so that I'm salvaging my sanity, my time, my energy, my resources. So even when we say no to certain time requests, I'm protecting what is me and what is not me, my time, my money.
So if I tell you that I'm not working after 5 and you continue to call, the boundary is that I will just not answer the phone.
Correct.
I won't find that to be an important
Call you
time.
tomorrow at 8.
Yeah.
Right.
Should we pretend like nothing's wrong and just call them back the next day? Or should we bring it up every time it happens and say, hey, I asked that we do not do business on Sundays. Now that it's Monday, I'll gladly help,
I think the quality of the relationship deserves a conversation, and you are worthy enough to have the conversation and make the request. I am trying to protect my leisure time or my recuperating time, that I'm not working on Sundays anymore. And if somebody keeps asking, I mean, it's helpful to remind them, because when we set boundaries, especially when people are used to us being people pleasers and perfectionists and hard workers, then they may need the reminder. Hey, don't forget, I actually don't work on Sundays. I don't work on Sundays anymore. And the requests can keep coming in. They can ask all they want. I say it like this now,
Yeah. I guess it really depends on the situation. That's so specific to the dynamic of the situation, the relationship, all those.
Yeah. You could just send back a simple like, hey, I'll catch you tomorrow. Or you could also reply with, I told you I don't work on Sundays anymore. I mean, I think it's all about the relationship.
Boundaries. Who's responsible for what?
Yeah.
It's a constant question. My husband likes to say, what's on your side of the fence? That's all we're really responsible for. Somebody recently broke down the word response-able. So who is actually able to respond to whatever the situation is? Because a lot of times we make ourselves responsible for other people's emotions, things, whatever. And so who is actually responsible for
Interesting.
blank?
God, that's another thing that I have a problem with.
What?
Is being responsible for other people's problems, or like making
Feeling
myself.
I either say
I'm
it
such a
either is
fixer.
your business, it's not your business, or we're making it our business. And we have to figure out which one it actually is. Sorry, I heard another thing. This might be an Instagram therapy thing, but it's one I'm sitting with right now. People pleasing is actually a form of self-regulation. Sit on that for a second. That we'd rather go to people pleasing so that I am regulated, as opposed to dealing with my emotions about you being upset in any way.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So, and I would put perfectionism and overworking in those categories too. We'd rather do these things and get caught up in those things than actually figure out what emotion I have about the situation or relationship at hand.
Yeah, because emotions can be, if you're not well regulated, or if you don't understand emotions, then it could be very scary. Because I mean, it's something that bubbles up, and if you've for so long just tried to push that beach ball under the water and just hold it there, whenever it bubbles up, sometimes you don't know what you're going to do with that. Like, you don't know how to handle the emotion,
because they come from so many different places.
Right.
I mean, they can come from really deep wounds,
right?
Or not, nurture or nature. I mean, it can come from a lot, and it can be scary. That's why I think mental health and therapy is so important, to have support in whatever situations people find themselves in.
I thought you were going to go with we're people pleasers because we'd rather make other people happy because we don't know how to make ourselves happy. I thought that's where that was going.
I think that's part of it
You just
too.
went there too, Dustin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, but because
Let's ignore my own problems and fix others so they like me.
because when you're good, I'll be good.
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with my stuff as long as you're good.
I guess that's kind of, it's
It
right,
is.
hand in hand.
Yeah.
I've also had to decipher, okay, so not all your feelings are true. Like, they're not always the truth. Just because I feel something in the moment doesn't mean
It's fact.
But the feeling's real.
The feeling's
reason
real.
behind it is
yes.
not.
We tell
Right.
stories. The brain, in the absence of information, the brain will make up stories. Case in point, whenever you walk into a crowded room and everybody stops talking, what do you think?
They're all talking about me.
They are talking about me. It is a universal thought.
Well, and those stories are not usually positive.
They never are, because the brain is also wired for your safety and protection. And so if I don't have information, you are a risk, you are a threat. And so shut it down, abort mission,
Yeah.
And so in the absence of information, the brain is going to go for your safety. And that means danger.
Yeah.
And so the key is, one, recognize when you're telling yourself a story. Yeah, the feelings are real. I love that, but it may not be fact.
Yeah.
Your story may not be fact. So it's important for us to discern what is a story I'm telling myself versus what is fact and what I need to recover from.
The biggest, this is totally personal, but we're going there.
This is a therapy session is what this is.
Pretty much.
It's
This is why we
authentic.
invited you back, because we needed more therapy.
Yeah. Once a month, we'll just have you on.
I'm here. I love it.
The biggest story that I have told myself that I am actively working on is when my husband is chilling on the sofa or at his desk or doing whatever he's doing, and I am running around, mopping, doing dishes, whatever. He's not helping me because he doesn't appreciate me. He's being lazy. Mainly things that are like negative about him towards me.
you. Mhm.
And he obviously doesn't love me.
Story.
Yeah.
Facts.
And, but really, he's exhausted because he works all the time. I don't really have to work. So he handles all that. And having to remind myself that the world doesn't all revolve around me. He's dealing with his own stuff too. And not everything is an attack on me.
Mm-hmm. Can I interject two things
Yeah.
since you went there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, wait, I might have just forgot the first one. So I'm glad you recognize that it's a story. Well, also, one, are you overperforming, for some sort of feeling for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And two, are you asking for what
No.
you want? Okay. Yeah. And so then we
She knew exactly what you were going to say both times.
Because I'm very self-aware. I'm
know.
aware that I'm a crazy person.
no, that's don't talk bad about my friend. No, it's what we do.
Yeah.
Because it's harder to say, wait, what? Like I use naps, women and naps, because we don't want to rest. You have to keep going.
Taking one nap.
Because I thought you were really going to say an opposite scenario, like I feel bad when I'm on the sofa and he's working. Like I need to be working.
That's never happened.
Okay. But we have these other emotions that we have to deal with. Do you have something that looked like you were?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So, because we talked about this last time, and I want to be sure to get the 5 felony emotions that we talked about last time, because it's usually one of 5 emotions that keep us from setting boundaries, asking for what we want or what we need, including if it's just help around the house, or I'm taking a break, or it's okay that I don't sweep and mop right now.
Yeah.
So the 5 emotions are shame, guilt, fear, obligation, and conditioning.
All those.
I was about to say.
I know.
all those.
Pick one, any scenario, but
Right.
it might be something or a mixture of, depending on, where you're at or what the situation is. And it could be small or big. But shame is I don't feel like I am enough. Fear is I'm doing something wrong. Obligation, you've done something good for me, so I need to do something good for you.
I hate that feeling of like,
Well,
thanks, but now how do I make it even? Like,
and you don't. The only thing for when you've done something good for me, you already said it. Thank
thanks.
you.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you have to say.
Appreciation.
Mhm.
Logic is they're not expecting anything in return. They're trying to do something nice for you.
Right.
Doing it out of the kindness of their
Right. Who's responsible for their emotions?
Right. They are.
They are. But we've got to remember that. Like, well, what if they're upset if I don't
Yeah.
do a favor in kind?
Mm.
Well, tell them to take it to their therapist. Right. Yeah. And then, or conditioning. Well, dad said we work hard, we work overtime. Mom
Right.
said nice people sacrifice their lives. But if you don't know that one of those emotions might be driving your decisions or things, those are the ones that you have to wrestle with to get to the freedom on the other side, and that freedom of authentic choice.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's language, it's semantics, but people say they made me feel this way. They're doing
Yeah.
this and it makes me feel this way. And to a degree, yes, makes something happen that causes us to feel certain ways. But we have the power to respond.
We have to regulate at that point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's whenever we pull out the ruler method.
Yeah.
Learn how
and we
to
regulate.
Yeah.
control your emotions.
Because someone may really do something. Can I curse?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know it. Somebody really may do something shitty. Now I feel like I should have used a smarter word. I mean, I had the choice. I had the choice to use a more
We can all
of my
relate to-
vocabulary.
We can all relate to somebody doing something
We all know
shitty.
you have good
Yeah.
words. You have the
Whatever.
best
I
words.
really don't.
Authenticity.
Thank you. Let's go back to that. That somebody really may have done something hurtful, and then we have to wrestle with, is that a relationship that I want to stay engaged with? Because
Right.
when we show up as authentic and we're allowing and accepting other people to do them, then you're dealing with real things about how do I want to engage, if I want to engage, or has that
this relationship just run its course?
Yeah. Necessary
Say
endings.
goodbye.
That's a hard place to be whenever you start protecting yourself and prioritizing
Mm-hmm.
and then having to decide to eliminate people or change relationships.
Relationships will change when you do that, and it will become more clear
Mhm.
who actually values, respects, and protects your boundaries the way that you do.
Mm-hmm.
It will be way more clear. It is a tricky cycle of, am I doing this to control your behavior or to protect me? That's the nuance of knowing the difference.
And are you doing this to conform to what I want, or are you doing it because you also feel like that's the right thing?
And that's the thing we can't control, is
That's their
how or
decision.
why
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
people behave towards us the way that they do. We can't control that. Because I know we say, I feel bad if you're doing something for me. It's like, who's responsible for that?
Being a human is weird.
It's so icky sometimes.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
I enjoy this stuff. It's your stuff that I find icky.
Uh.
That part of human, food and body. Bleh. But I'll talk emotions all day.
Yeah.
Well, I like talking emotions too.
Okay, good.
It's my favorite
Me too.
thing to figure out.
I love brain stuff.
I've been in so much
Mhm,
therapy
mhm.
in my life. I should have just been a therapist. I really like
Hey.
it.
There's still time.
Yeah.
It's never too
No.
late.
There- Dude, I went back
already
to
in-
school. I went back to school when I was 40
Yeah.
for this.
At 40, so
Yeah. What were you
there's-
doing before?
Yeah, I think
there's
we
all
missed
kinds
that
of
whole.
Yeah.
we did talk about that last time. But I think when you turn 40, that's kind of a pivotal moment in adulthood. I think where
I still got
you're
time.
out of your you're out of your 30s, like out of the young adulthood. Now you're really expected to
Bonafide,
show up
like a
you
real
know?
adult.
Yeah, like you have to be a real adult. So at that point made you realize that you were what were you doing before, and you weren't really being a real adult doing that? What made you shift into such a this is a deep change,
Yeah.
a real big shift in adulting?
I wish I could take credit the way you described it, but it was not my realization. I was thrust into it. I had been in restauranting for 20 years. Since being 18, I was a bartender, led to restaurant management, event planning, and job after job after job. And I was in New Orleans working for Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, the corporate office, when Hurricane Katrina hit. And we had our jobs. The next day they told us, you have your job, but it's in Florida. They moved to Florida the next day. And so I tried doing that for a little bit because I was here now. And I was like, well, I need to do something else. And I got counseling and coaching. And we evaluated all of my jobs. What did I love about them? Where did I lose myself in time? What could I just do forever? What did I not like? Did I see myself outside or sitting or schedule? All the things. And it ended up being going back to school and trying for counseling. And I had all the fears of, what if I hate it? What if I'm investing this time and money and I suck at it, or I don't really want to do it? And that has not happened. I've found something. There are people who are like, oh, I can't wait to be a teacher, a doctor, a mom, whatever. I never had that.
Mm-hmm.
And I always envied people that had vision like that. And now I found what I love. And so that's how I got into it. But it was weird going back to school at 40. Can I say something about 40? Yeah. It's automatic bona fide, because even if you haven't done stuff, 40 is like, okay, well, you've lived enough. You're bona fide.
Right.
But I was the geek in the front row. I was going to be a better
Yes.
student. I was like, y'all shut up back there. I'm trying to learn shit. But I will say 50, that is like, fucking, I'm 50. 40, you might think, oh yeah, I'm doing stuff. 50 is like, I'm doing whatever the hell I want, suckers.
I love it.
Oh my God. It's awesome. I love a good midlife crisis. But when you say you've got time, hell yeah. We got time for all kinds of stuff. 1 to 20, you're just trying to figure it out. Make all your risks and mistakes till you're 30. You got plenty of time to recover in all of it.
Yeah. I heard the other day that like a 23-year-old is a 3-year-old adult. So they're really kind of in their infancy of adulthood, you know, even though we have like some expectations of them. But, you know, a 26-year-old is a 6-year-old adult. So they don't really have enough experience to have lived all of their life. And so that, I think if I would have known that whenever I was those ages, it would have made me feel a whole lot better. But it just like, it helps you to kind of see that the people, the young adults, you know, give them a little bit more perspective.
I was a nincompoop.
I think we all are
idiot at 23.
I think we all are, and I think we really only have the benefit of perspective because of the experience.
Right.
I would love to be able to tell some of the 23 to 26 year olds, like, you're figuring it out. Give yourself a break. I don't know what someone could have told me at that age to give myself a break. I also
have a friend whose son is 18, and she calls him a man pup. And I'm like, oh, that's so cute. He's like a little puppy of a man. He's growing into something eventually.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have younger siblings, and it's hard to tell someone when they're young that they don't know everything yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whenever I was 18 to 26, basically, I knew everything. And if you told me I didn't know, shut up. But I really didn't know any, but I don't think you can until life kicks you in the face a little bit.
I think
and you got to recover.
At that stage, you understand, like, you're out of that teenage years. Like, you understand all of the things that you didn't understand before. And so now you feel like, oh, well, I've got all that. I just don't have all the life space ahead of me figured out.
It's like there's some young people I want to say, please let yourself take risks, do all the things, don't beat yourself up. And then others, I'll be like, get your act together.
You are no longer an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
That's funny. So a question that you mentioned, counseling and coaching. How do you discern the difference between the two of those?
As a counselor, as I have to protect my license, and that is the baseline of what I do. So I'm glad you asked that question, because there is a very big distinction. And primarily it's the clinical need. In counseling, we deal with clinical diagnoses of anxiety, depression, including a whole spectrum of things that probably fall under coaching, but we have a skills of an education of human behavior and development, and the awareness of clinical symptoms of developmental, neurodivergence, mood disorders that we deal with in therapy. And so that can inform when I do coaching, but we cannot do them at the same time. If I take a coaching client, they come to me either with their own therapist or at a higher level of functioning from a clinical need. Like, it's not to say that someone with depression or anxiety or some clinical diagnosis can't do coaching. It's the symptoms are managed to a point where coaching then becomes, we're going to work on goals or something forward focused. Whereas therapy definitely goes into maybe some past traumas or developmental things. So it just has a kind of a different focus and foundation.
Okay. This is changing, but there's always been kind of a stigma around mental health counseling. Really, the coaching part, like, everybody could use a little coaching, but everybody could use a little counseling too. But why do you think that there is such a stigma around mental health?
Because we feel like that means something's wrong with us. I even suggested to one of my, I'll just say a person in my life, a young man, that he get some therapeutic support. And he goes, oh, you think I'm that bad off? There's something wrong with me? I'm like, no, you need support, dude. We all need support at any given time. I think we're trying to break the stigma that counseling does not mean you're crazy.
Right.
It means, like, we don't learn emotional intelligence skills. We don't learn a lot of fundamental development in school. And so we're educated on this. So come to us with what you got so we can help you get to the next thing.
Especially when those problems start trickling into relationships that are affecting your life negatively, because we've all been through stuff. And if you live alone, sometimes that's okay. But when it starts affecting your partner or your children or
can I get a job, or am I thriving in my health, or other things, we don't know what's contributing.
There's no way that it cannot affect
your life.
relationships.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, if you don't
Right.
have, if you don't have the confidence to be able to put yourself out there, then it's
Mhm.
going to affect relationships.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
you can't emotionally self-regulate, it's going to affect everyone around you, whether it's an intimate relationship or not. I mean, there's no way that it would not affect relationships, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any relationship, even your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
Your relationship with your coworkers or your work life. I like to say it's just support for people who are struggling with, I don't want to go to counseling or I don't think I need therapy. But we all, like you said, we all need support. And it is compassionate, confidential, educated support and objective. Yeah, go talk to all your friends, but they're going to say, yeah, they hurt you. Yeah, let's go slash some tires.
Right.
Or, yeah, if you don't want to try, okay, don't. But if you go to an objective therapist who can see an objective side of your life, it's objective to overuse the word.
Yeah.
And if I could say one more thing. So like, I live with pervasive underlying functional anxiety. I've only recently learned a lot about it, like how it shows up in my family and in my life. I've always known I've had travel anxiety for a long time. And I just came back from a very bucket list big trip. And so I went to therapy weekly for the past month or so. And got very specific therapeutic interventions for anxiety. And I used them on that trip so that I could be present and not so future fearful. And it was great. And I also used medication. So when you have that panel of, with medication, there's just a holistic way to look at everything that you need. And I hate to overuse the word too, but authentic to each person, what you personally may need for your wellness, your wholeness.
Yeah, we're having our mental health panel, our health revolution in May, and you're going to be on that panel.
Excited?
I'm really excited to talk about all those different things, like how our diet affects our health and all the emotional regulation. And we're going to have a psychiatric nurse practitioner on there and talk about medication because that's not evil.
No.
Like some people need medication, even if it's short term, long term, whatever. I mean, I've been on medication in my life and I'm not on it anymore, but it helped me through situations. So I'm really excited to talk about that.
Yeah.
I have travel anxiety too, really, really bad.
So what is this travel anxiety? Because I might have it too. I don't know.
Well,
not that I want to join the club, but
Is that when you can't poop?
No,
that would be travel constipation. Totally different
Travel
subject.
constipation. Yeah.
Anytime I can bring up travel constipation, I'll bring it up.
Oh my gosh. I have such a fear of flying that I almost didn't go on this trip
Okay.
to that point. And I know right now I don't want to be that person yet if it ever gets that bad. But like I did, the therapy I did with the counselor that I'm working with is DBR, deep brain reprocessing, so that I can learn a different way because anxiety, I've created a rut of anxiety that this is what flying means. This is what traveling means. It means danger. But the fact is I'm not putting myself in dangerous situations. So yeah, it's travel anxiety.
I have that bad.
Or weather, those are some specific things, but like anxiety can be about anything. Social anxiety.
I definitely have weather anxiety after the whole Katrina situation.
Yeah. And so we can work
helicopter
through
anxiety too.
Wait, what?
Helicopter anxiety.
Okay.
I'm hearing the helicopters.
Oh.
Yeah. That
Like
whenever
the
I hear a
traumatic
helicopter,
response.
I automatically like a PTSD kind of response.
And so, so this therapy kind of went into a deep experience that I had as a teenager in flying. And so you learn a survival mechanism or an anxiety response that this thing equals danger. But the fact is it might not be. But your anxiety brain is moving into that. And so there are therapies and interventions that can help retrain the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex to have a different response to that same trigger.
So I had a really scary flight a couple years ago and pretty much have never flown again. We used to fly all the time. Like every 2 to 3 months I was on a plane, never really had a problem with it. Now I can't visit my family in Arizona and Nevada. Very limiting. So I'm interested to hear about that. Is that similar to EMDR?
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's no.
Okay.
Only similar, only similar in that it does touch deeper physiological where trauma is stored in the brain and body.
Okay, because whenever you were talking about moving it,
Yes,
that's what it reminded
EMDR
me of.
does definitely do that. But with like bilateral stimulation of tapping or lights or movement. So what's beautiful is that there's so many therapeutic interventions depending on what you might be, where you're coming from and what you need. I mean, in my office, I mostly just do CBT. I say just, but it's cognitive behavioral, working on your thoughts. And then we may discover that there's something preventing you from adjusting those thoughts to different behaviors. And there are numerous interventions out there. And so I encourage people to do their research, ask around, call me, we'll figure something out.
I would love to do an episode on EMDR. It's that therapy changed my life. It was amazing.
Good.
Obviously, after Hurricane Katrina, you had a major pivot in life, and that is something that I am sort of familiar with. Recently, I had a major life pivot. Did you have a lot of resistance changing everything about your life? Like, what was that like for you emotionally and mentally, going from like, this has been my life and my career, and now that's gone? Was that hard for you?
Yes, and kind of similar to what you've experienced in total sidebar. I'm super proud of how you have navigated your pivot, because there are some things that come out of our control. Some changes, which would be lovely if we could make changes because we wanted them and we were drawn to these new arenas in life, and that's exciting change. But some, kind of like what happened to you and me with Katrina, it's like it just happens. And then we're forced to just kind of sit with, well, now what? Now what do I do? And so resistant or not, it's there. Some people, we all deal with it, and sometimes in our lives, whether it's a death in the family or sickness, loss of jobs, things that are beyond our control, natural disasters, resistant or not, they're going to happen. And how we take care of ourselves in them can change how we experience it, when we can be patient with ourselves in the transition to help figure out, so what now? No matter what, whether it's a loss of job or when my mom passed away 2 years ago, when she was sick the year leading up to that, I dropped a lot of work that I was excited about. And I was resistant to it at first, but I knew that I didn't have the capacity for it. And so I had to make some boundary decisions to say no to projects and courses that I had put out in the world that I was excited about. But I knew that time in my life, I was wanted and needed to be somewhere else. So to navigate any pivot, I would just encourage, like we're talking about the ruler method, I would encourage anybody to care for themselves in that, so that you can find where your grounded place is going to be. What will be your authentic needs, whether it's a little bit of compassion and self-care and curl up and lick your wounds for a little bit, so that you can then decide, all right, well, now what do I want to do with this? Because we can choose to stay in that ball and or we can care for ourselves where we are there, whether it turns into something clinical, anxiety, depression, or whatever. Get support so that you can have access to a very thriving, happy, exciting life. We all, that is our right, I think.
Like licking your wounds a little bit and balling up is part of the grieving process for anything. Like, you're supposed to allow yourself to feel sad and whatever the negative emotions are too. But you can't stay there forever. We can. But grief, I'm glad you even used that word, because grief we think of just when someone passes away. But there's loss of relationships when we start setting these boundaries that we're talking about. There's grief there. I wish you could have been something different. I wish this could have been different. And grief, the one thing I've learned about grief, at least my take on it, is it's the one thing that doesn't ever get better. Right.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that we really just have to take care of ourselves in, so I can be sad about this or disappointed and care for that little space so that I can have access to the joy or the other possibilities. And you just move through it. Because whenever you think about that loss, that's always going to be the loss. There's nothing better about that.
Right.
Yeah. But take care of yourself.
But it did catapult me into a different direction that I never would have thought. And it's better.
Mm-hmm.
Just like everything in my life, even the other tragedies in my life, that in those moments, they're devastating and they're still sad and devastating. But because of them, I've grown in different ways, or I had different opportunities. So I don't allow myself to stay mentally stuck in those moments, because I know that the universe has a plan for me. I'm also a very spiritual person.
Yeah.
So I think that there's kind of a design. I don't know if it's all laid out for us, but there's purpose to the things that happen in our lives.
Oh, we can make purpose out of it for sure. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of perspective. I don't know. I wish there was a way to really teach that to someone new to stress or distress or strife. If you look at probably anybody in this room if you look at something that's really great in your life, something that's really wonderful right now, if you back out the stages and steps that got you to it, whether it's a friendship, relationship, situation, whatever, it more than likely came from
some sad stuff.
Yep. From a sadness, a loss, a distress, a something.
Well, and I think that's the roller coaster of life. I mean, no one gets out of this without having any grief, or without ever having sadness, or without ever having something that feels uncomfortable. That's part of life, and that's part of growth, and that's part of just who we are as human. That's part of humanity.
Yeah. And I don't think you could appreciate or feel joy and ecstatic happiness had you not felt the opposite
of it. Mm-hmm. You're right. No one gets out of it unscathed. No. So we may as well learn how to be in this. There's a great quote, I think it's Glennon Doyle, where we think the goal of being human is to feel happy all the time, but the goal is actually to be able to feel everything, because life is just going to happen. And so learn how to feel the negative things, to take care of yourself there, so that you still have access to joy at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the emotions have value.
Never waste a good trigger.
Yeah.
Never waste a trigger. We always think, I want to avoid, I'm triggered. So we avoid it, or we ignore it. I'm triggered. Nope. That's
lean
when you
into
lean
it.
in. Yeah. Lean into those good triggers.
That's funny.
I do love a good trigger. Yeah. Before we let you go, we have to know, what does living vividly mean to you?
I think we lived vividly the most when we live authentically as ourselves, even if it's a quiet, serene, solitary life. If that is authentic to me, then that's vivid to me. I don't believe it has to be like out there and all the colors and out in front of anything. It's whatever that resonates with me. Because I know that I'm a little bit of both. I like being out there. I do theater and music, and I love that. And I'm a social butterfly. And then I really love solitary time with ducks and water and cats and things. And that feels good. So
we didn't talk about your ducks.
My ducks. I have 10 ducks.
Yes.
Period. Come visit.
I do need to meet these ducks.
You need to at least meet Cheeto.
Yeah, the one Cheeto. I helped broker a Cheeto adoption.
Yes. A friend of hers had a duck that needed home, and I had 9 at the time, and now I have 10, and Cheeto is assimilated and integrated beautifully.
That's
awesome.
wonderful.
Yeah, it is.